My first sort of fight when I was just left school, about 16 and a half, 17. You know, and I remember doing really well. This kid was meant to wipe the floor with us. And, you know, I just lit him up. And slowly over time, mate, you know, I started thinking I was something that I wasn't, you know what I mean? Been a bit of a tosser with it. And, you know, and I broke down in that chapel. I cried a river, you know, probably more so than I've ever cried before. And I remember looking at myself in that mirror for not just 1 or 2 hours, hours and hours.
I speak to some people who's been through it the same way as you, and they say it's like people have said they've left the building like they're levitating. Wow, it must be powerful.
And yeah, it got me, mate. Got me there. You know what I mean?
Fucking right.
He come out and said it's a 12-foot ring, and there's about 8 or 9 of them in there. He put his hand out and said, "Listen, no matter what happens in here, if it goes off in here, so I'll die with you in here."
I thought with the Jake Paul kind of thing, I always thought it was fixed. I did, and I know for fighters, people get quite anal about it because you're in the ring yourself now in a professional promotion.
You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of money behind Jake Paul. You know, a lot of money behind him. And, you know, as we know, money talks.
The Central Club.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing, Tidy Comps and Boss Security. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the club and hit the bell button to be notified of future content. There's some people out there that can walk the walk and talk the talk. This man can do just that. Danny Christie is the bare knuckle fighter from Carlisle who blew up on YouTube just over 2 years ago. And you're probably thinking that this interview is just talking about fighting. It is, but it's not. We're talking about the battles he's had in his life with mental health, addiction, and death. Please tune in and stay central. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Danny Christie.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm great, mate. How are you?
Mate, I'm never better, you know. Never better. There's you know, a couple of little issues going on at the minute, but nothing I can't handle, mate. You know, I'll be absolutely fine with him.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming anyway, mate. I know it's a long travel.
My pleasure, mate.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get you on for a very long time. I've been a massive fan from the moment I discovered you on a podcast, a Bad Blood podcast a couple of years back, and glued to the screens like a lot of other people. You've just got this infectious personality about you. So, yeah, I want to jump in with the first thing is, when you was younger, what did you want to be?
Nothing. Been asked this a few times, you know. I never had no dreams. I never had no aspirations. I never had anything really. You know, even while I was boxing, you know, it's a strange one, mate, because I never actually said I want to be this, I want to be that. You know, there was nothing really, you know, in my field of vision, what I wanted to work towards or attempted to work towards. It was just a funny thing, you know. For a long time, I've just been floating around, you know, directionless, you know, until I got into recovery just over a year ago. You know, that's when things started taking shape, you know what I mean? And I started giving myself direction, giving myself goals, little goals, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, ultimate goals, you know what I mean? And I have them things now in my life, you know what I mean? And it's new and it's nice, you know. Yeah,
I can see it on your face as well. Like, it's a special feeling. So you're saying when you was younger then, like, there was nothing that you wanted to become when you was in school? There was nothing?
I liked doing a lot of things. You know, I liked doing a lot of things. I liked thieving. You know, I liked fighting. I liked girls, you know, but there was nothing that I really wanted to be, you know. You hear a lot of kids and a lot of people saying, you know, they had this dream, they had this ambition, they had this goal or this vision. When it wasn't me, you know, I just floated around. And I loved life. You know, I loved life. I was cheeky, I was mischievous. You know, I was a lot of things. But, no, as far as goals and dreams, mate, they were just never there. I liked a lot of things, like I've said. And I maybe have short-term goals. Maybe wanted to do something that weekend, if it was a Monday or a Tuesday. But it never went much further than that.
That's so refreshing to hear. It's like It's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know what they're doing, Dan. I think a lot of people don't know what they want to do.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, mate.
You've just said it how it is. So
yeah, that went on, mate. That went on right through my 20s and right into my early 30s to my mid 30s. You know what I mean? Before I eventually grasped this beautiful experience we call life. You know what I mean? We take so much for granted, don't we? And it's once you've arrived, once I arrived, you know, once my eyes were open, I was like, right, what do I want? How do I get it? You know, and that was the start of the journey for me.
For the people who don't know, may not know you, you're from the northern town of Carlisle.
Yeah, the great border city.
The great border city. What was that like growing up in Carlisle? Can you describe Carlisle to us?
Yeah, a good northern town, city, should I say. You know, there's a lot of towns that's bigger than the city. You know, I think there's around 100,000 people there. Just great people. You know, in my late teens and early 20s, I worked all over the place, worked all over the nation, really, scaffolding. I used to work away, and I've worked, you know, a lot of places, a lot of places. And Carlisle was always the place that I liked the most, you know, not just because it was home, likely because it was home, but, you know, I'm just biased towards the place. I love the place, you know what I mean? It's, the place gets me there, you know what I mean? The people get me there. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the people. And it's just, you know, probably that feeling that a lot of people have towards, you know, the place where they grew up, the people they grew up around. And, you know, I think it's got good values, rough, tough people, you know, and there isn't, shall we say, organised crime on a high level. You know, there's a lot of people doing bits and pieces, as there is everywhere. But, you know, there's not like, no gangs, stuff like that. And a lot of fighting, a lot of meetups, you know, and the measure of lads around there that are growing up is, you know, can you fight? You know, that's the sad truth. You know, that's the measure of you. You know, if you can't fight, that's absolutely fine. But the measure of people around there is, you know, we love to fight.
Top, yeah, who's the top boy? Like,
yeah, we love to fight.
I think you answered it really, but that's what I was gonna say. You know, everyone says Carlisle, it's the fighting man's town. It's, you know, where a lot of hard men come from.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because it's like in the middle of nowhere in that sense, and it's like, you know, do you think the geography comes into play there?
Yeah, it could well be. You know, I tell myself it's just the way it's always been. You know, it goes way, way back, you know, right to the ancestry and that, if you like. You know, there was the Romans, Lugavallium, you know, that's, you know, when everyone kind of thinks that and believes that, you know, it goes way, way back. You know, the Romans loved that place. And it's been part of Scotland, I don't know how many times, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a battleground.
Yeah, the Romans wanted it, and then the Jocks wanted it, and, you know, we've just always been that fighting place, I think, you know, when we go way back.
Yeah. And you just said then that there's no really gangs up there and stuff. So, you know, obviously in Britain now we get a lot of this county lines, which has gone on for years anyway. But I imagine Carlisle as one of those towns up in the valleys or something where you're not getting outsiders coming in selling drugs. You're probably going to get run out.
No,
do you have that as well? Or?
No, mate. Funny enough, you do.
You have got them.
Funny enough, you do.
Seeping through the cracks.
Yeah, of course, mate. There's a lot of county line stuff goes on there. I've had mates, you know, I've been jailed over the county lines, teaming up with, you know, kids from Manchester and Scousers and stuff, because like I've just said, it's not organised. You know, it's kind of wide open for these big firms that are organised. You know, they can come in with, you know, what they want and sell what they want, and you see, if they can put a lot of decent people or rough kind of people on the payroll, you know, then it works even better for them. You know what I mean? They don't have great competition, if you like.
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly. Rich pickings, really, innit?
Yeah.
So when did fighting become a passion for you? Was this something that, like, because obviously you said, you know, you were all from Carlisle, you have to fight. But when did it become a passion for you?
11-year-old. I first walked into a boxing club. Loved it, you know. I felt like I had a passion for it. I really liked it, and I wasn't fighting on the street or anything by that time, you know, by any stretch of the imagination. I was mischievous and stuff, of course, but I was, you know, welcomed into the boxing gym by a few lads that were older than me. I was knocking about with some lads that were a bit older, and they were fighting, and I went down there. I remember my first session, and I loved it, and just kind of went from there. I never started fighting on the street till I was about 16, 17 when I left school. And I had a little bit of a hard time at school, you know, some older kids used to knock us about a bit. And my own fault, really. I put myself on the map by robbing them. You know what I mean? I used to rob them, and used to be up to all kinds of tricks in that school to, you know, to scheme people's coats and monies and watches. And, you know, I got found out a few times, and I made a rod for my own back with some older lads and that. And even though I was boxing, for whatever reason, I never really had the arse to be engaging with people outside of the boxing club. Do you know what I mean? And I found myself backing down a few times. And my first sort of fight when I was just left school, about 16 and a half, 17. And it was, funnily enough, outside the school, although we weren't at school. No, and I remember doing really well. I was. This kid was meant to wipe the floor with us. And, you know, I just lit him up. I lit him up, and I remember thinking, wow, you know, boxing's made that really easy. You know, I could use what I'd learnt in the gym out on the street. And slowly over time, mate, you know, I started thinking I was something that I wasn't, you know what I mean? Been a bit of a tosser with it, and started looking for trouble now, especially when the drugs getting involved, or you're drinking uptown and partying uptown, especially with a gang of lads. You get that mentality that, you know, no one can mess with us, we can do what we want. And I carried a bit of that around for quite a long time, you know, and got us into a lot of trouble.
So looking back at those ages when you turned into your late teenagers, into a young adult, looking back now, you just said, I've only just found myself, I know what I want to do. Was you proud of who you was then? Was it?
Never really thought about it that way, do you know what I mean? Until kind of like my late 20s, when I realised that I disliked myself, you know what I mean? But before that, I kind of had the, you know, a bit of a chances attitude, you know what I mean? Opportunistic type person. You know, I never really had them moments, or them deep moments, you know, which is now necessary for me, of reflection. You know, I never really looked at myself in the mirror or sat down and thought about myself, you know, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What do I want to be?
Would you give yourself that chance? You was always on it?
Just always on the go, mate. Like I say, I had a lust for life, and I was here, there and everywhere, but ultimately just floating around, you know, no direction at all, you know what I mean? But into everything, you know.
Would you say you was technically, a gifted boxer? Would you say you was a gifted boxer?
I was decent enough, mate, yeah. I won a North West Counties championship. I went to the national quarterfinals in the ABAs. I was decent enough amateur. I had 19 fights and won 12. You know what I mean? It was decent enough record, and been in there with some good kids and loved it, you know. And first 5, 6, 7 year was class. Even though we weren't the most active, you know, the boxing club we were in, there was a lot of gym time. They weren't willing to put you in and learn in the ring. They wanted you to go in there and be right and be perfect. So there was a lot more gym time. There was other clubs in the town that were getting more fights because, you know, they were getting picked good fights. You know, our gym they wanted just more gym time than fighting, you know, and that reflected in a lot of the records that a lot of the lads had. You know, we had some good fighters there.
Yeah, well, to me, that would, you know, straight away, I would think that's because they're more serious about it. They want to train you to your full potential. They don't want to just get you in there and fucking fighting.
Yeah, mate, some of the relationships I had with a couple of my coaches was brilliant. You know, I miss them. I miss them days looking back, you know. I don't, you know, dwell on it or anything, but looking back, they're probably some of the best years of my life, that growing up, you know, in the gyms and being welcomed by the coaches and the relationships they had with us. And that's one of my plans, you know, when I finish fighting, I'm going to go down, I'm going to be attached to one of the amateur clubs, because the way I thought of my coaches then, you know, and the help and the influence that they had over us, I want that. I want that, because, you know, it doesn't really get recognised all the time there. You know, these lads, these men, should I say, that coach kids and stuff, they're not on a wage, you know. They're lucky if they get their expenses covered, you know what I mean? They're doing it because they've got a passion for helping people. And the admiration, love and respect that I had for them was real deep-seated, you know, and I'd like that, you know what I mean? I'd like to do that, you know, when I get the opportunity.
For both sides, and for yourself and for the kids.
100% for the kids, you know, but I know how rewarding it must be, you know what I mean? Big time.
Do you think you reach your full potential in boxing?
No, not a cat in hell's chance, mate. You know, my prime years were spent, you know, in all the wrong ways, all the wrong areas, you know, pursuing all the wrong avenues.
But do you look at it now similar to I do? Do you look at it like that was all meant to be?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't regret anything. You know, I've done some bad things, made a lot of mistakes, and You know, endless mistakes, mate.
You're laughing there.
A catalogue
You got
of
some
mistakes.
funny stories there.
Yeah. But no, on a serious note, mate, looking back, again, before I got into recovery, yeah, I didn't like the person I was. Used to look back and hate on everything. All the bad stuff was at the forefront, and it was highlighted, and it superseded any good deed that I'd ever done because it was right at the forefront of me thinking, you know, all regret, you know, mountains of pain, misery and regret, the back end of my using. But not now. You know, now I'm clean. I look back at it and how could I not? How could I? You know, how can I not like all that stuff? It's led me to the place I am now, which is, you know, the most peace, real inner peace that I've ever had. You know, and I'm not a guru and I haven't achieved any levels of Zen, you know, but I'm definitely the happiest I've ever been, you know, so why should I regret, you know, what I've done if it's led to here?
Exactly. And that's how everyone got to live their life.
Yeah.
When I first come across you, the thing that, you know, it hit me deep, like the things you were talking about. And I think we got a lot in common in this way. Not in fighting, by the way, just to put it out there. No, but with your story of addiction and the things you were describing and how you're battling with it. And I want to go into it, like a bit of your addiction and your sobriety now. And first of all, it is, how did you come across discovering drugs in the first place?
Probably like most kids do, you know, that wondering what that funky smell is, you know what I mean, at the back of the bike sheds when you're at school and stuff. We touched on it very briefly before about, you know, weed being a gateway drug. Well,
Oh, don't. We're gonna get the comments now.
You know, and at the time, for me, it wasn't. I loved smoking weed. You know, I remember that first time I smoked solid. It was like some Afghan pollen. It was like really, really strong stuff, and it was the first time I'd had it. And I was 11, a can pipe, you know, and I remember the feeling of, I've spoke about it before, it's like my brain turned into like a supercomputer. You know, all this information started sort of formulating and percolating and, you know, getting itself all in order, you know, and everything was like, I knew what to do. And no, I'm not saying I could do it, but this sort of, you know, all the relevant information for everything just sort of really came alive, you know what I mean? The psychoactivity was off the charts.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, you know, and, you know, I wanted more, you know, I wanted a lot more.
Yeah, I think when people describe smoking weed, all they think, you know, people would just describe, oh, I love the giggles, I love the munchies. But what you've just described then is bang on.
Yeah.
And that is probably what grips us more than anything.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah, that's it. The feeling was immense, you know, and like anything, you know, the more you kick the ass out of something, that buzz will sharp start to go down.
Yeah.
You know, and your tolerance goes up. Yeah, you know, you consume more, you know, and that went on. And I was smoking weed the whole time I was boxing, you know, and I know probably had an effect on my training and my potential there and then at a young age, doing something that I liked. And
yeah, I know it's crazy because I got a few friends who, you know, some of them run for Cardiff, some of them play professional rugby, but they were smoking weed, like functioning. I need a spliff, otherwise I can't play. And it's like, well, they don't do that in the real world. Like in the real professional game, they don't do that. I know we've got like UFC fighters like Nate Diaz who smoke weed, but I'm talking about in you know, in the professional arena when it comes to rugby, football, we don't really see anyone smoking weed, do we?
No. I think the UFC, there's a few fighters in the UFC that kind of glorify it, you know, if you like. But it's like anything, you know. When I was boxing, I was smoking weed on a night. I wouldn't go into the boxing gym stoned, you know. It was the first thing I'd done. I smoked weed till I was about 16. I smoked it all my life, but never tried other things till I was about 16. And at the start, I could separate it, you know. I could go training. I could smoke weed after the gym, or the nights when I wasn't at the gym. And, you know, like anything else, like anything at the start, mate, you think you've got a handle on it, don't you, you know, and it didn't take long before, you know, I was doing it kind of all day, every day, you know, and then magics and trips were like the next level, you know, that was like a new level of psychoactivity what, you know, I'd never experienced. And Still looking back, mate, some really good times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Anything you can describe you saw when you was on those mushrooms?
Yeah, I once woke my mum up in the middle of the night. I said I was seeing ghosts. I remember, you know, when you blow bubbles with that bubble pots and that you get.
Yeah.
And you get like the blue and greeny type swirls. Well, there was people made out of that in my bedroom. Obviously, it was some strong shit. You know what I mean?
Some bubble people.
Yeah. And,
I know, like the rainbow effect.
And I remember touching him. There was like a man, he had like a tux on, and they were completely made out with this stuff, and had like a little rose in his top pocket. And I was sort of like terrified to come up to me, and I put my hands through and touched him, and my hands got wet. Whether they weren't likely they weren't. Do you know what I mean? But they got wet, and there was drips on my fingers and that, and I was terrified. A bad trip, you know what I mean? And I ran upstairs, and I woke my mum up and that, and my mum's had a lot of experience using, you know what I mean? My mum's been clean for 36 years.
Wow, amazing.
But she knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
After they,
yeah,
they've been there and got the t-shirt. Yeah, they fucking know.
And she talked me around, and I was sound. You know what I mean? She got up and put the lights on and made me a few bruises and that, and I was sound. But yeah, it was. It never stopped me at all. You know what I mean? I just thought I'd take a little bit less next time. You know what I mean? Or maybe swerve that strong one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it never deterred me at all.
Drinking alcohol. What was your usage like on the drinking?
We had a thing for cider when we were growing up. You know what I mean? Because it was cheap.
Yeah.
And it was cheerful. You know, but as anything progresses, you know, I ended up spirits, whiskies. I love Buckfast. You know, Buckfast.
Scottish one.
Yeah. And then
they have different levels of it as well, don't they? Different percentages, it or
I've heard that, mate. You know what I mean? But I think I've heard that a lot. But I could never see a difference. There was only sort of one brand as far as I was concerned. But it depended on, I think, how you were or how much you'd had to eat, because it's full of E numbers and caffeine and all that stuff. You know, I think if you do it on an empty stomach, mate, it just blows your head off.
Yeah. For the people who don't know what Buckfast is, do you want to give them a little rundown?
Yeah, it's loopy juice. It's tonic wine. You know what I mean? It's big over the border in Scotland, but you can get it anywhere, you know, especially if you look hard enough. You can find it in London and that, you know. I found it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful, hyped up, you know, drink that messes you up.
And that was what you used to like, is it? With a bucky, like.
That's it.
Yeah, the Scottishman showed me when we were on holiday, and fucking hell, it was rough. It reminded me of, you know, like the Magnums they get, the little Magnums. Have you seen them where the people drink?
No.
They're big in London and places, like rappers drink them, but they're tonic wine, Jamaican, and they're meant to give you a hard on and stuff as well. Yeah, it's like an aphrodisiac, but that's what it tasted like, and that's what it was like. But they're fucking bottles like that. Yeah, and they fuck you. Yeah. They do fuck you big time, man.
They mess you up.
Yeah. I know you're in recovery because you talk about it quite a lot, but what I kind of get from you is, and I think a lot of people would need to hear this, because there's a lot of people out there who've got problems with cocaine and alcohol, but because they're not physically dependent on it, they think they don't have a problem. And I think that, would I be correct by saying that was the same with you, that you weren't physically dependent, but when you drunk, you was in a mess and probably got up to mad shit?
Yeah, I think I was physically dependent, you know, without knowing. I thought I just, especially in my early 20s and mid-20s and towards my late 20s, to be honest, for the entirety of my early years in the first 10 years or so, I liked it. You know, I loved it more so than liked it, you know, and there was very little consequences apart from, you know, the odd come down and hangover started kicking. And apart from that, I hadn't really started leaving, you know, a trail of destruction, you know, which came later. But I enjoyed it. You know, I loved getting off my nut with the lads. I love the banter, I love the crack, I love taking ease, you know, Mandy, MCAT, you know, Coke, anything really, you know what I mean? Just that head change, I loved it. But I never tried to stop. You know, I never tried to stop until I was, you know, 34, 35. And then I realised I couldn't. You know, I never knew I was an addict until the last 2 years of my using, because I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. You know, and that's when I realised, you know. Up until then, I thought, this is something I want to do. Why would I attempt to stop it? You know, I'm happy doing this 4 or 5 times a week. You know,
and we kid ourselves as well a lot. Of
course we do. Of course we do.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is normal.
That's it. And it just became hardwired. You know, it became part of my everyday thinking. You know what I mean? Getting finding ways and means to get more.
Yeah.
You know, it was all I wanted to do.
In Carlisle as well, is this like a normal thing in Carlisle as well? Like, because, you know,
Yeah.
where I'm from, everyone's drinking and sniffing and smoking crack
Yeah.
as well. Like, you know, is
Yeah.
it because it's such a northern town as well? I can imagine it's a big town or a big city, you would say, but is there much out there to do?
Not so much, you know, not so much. There's a small city centre and you know, a handful of pubs and that and clubs where people go to, but there's a lot of drugs there, mate. There's a lot of drugs. It's been wide open for drugs for years, mainly because of the reason I said before.
Yeah.
There's no real kingpins. There's no organised gangs. And everything.
Was it? Is it power struggle? Is that what they call it in the mafia films?
Mate, there's none of that. You know, it's just open really, and there's gear everywhere. You know what I mean? And it's rife, mate. You know, it's similar to all the places nowadays. You know, all the young ones are at it. Right through, everyone's at it. You know, everyone's at it. That cocaine and alcohol is just, you know, it's everywhere. And
What's the heroin problem like up there?
of course,
bad as well, yeah.
Of course it is, mate. Absolutely. Oh yeah, you know, heroin city, mate, in the 80s and 90s when my dad was around and my mum was using. My mum was an addict. You know, it was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere, and there's still plenty of it. You know, but that seemed to be like somewhat of an epidemic when I was a young'un. You know, in the first couple of years of me using. You know, the first couple of years of me been born.
Yeah.
You know, it was everywhere. You still hear all the tales of how bad it was. You know, people dropping dead left, right, and centre. You know, there's drugs everywhere, man.
You just spoke about your mother then. She's been clean for nearly 40 years, you said?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned once your father was around, so I'm assuming he's not here no more.
Yeah, my dad died when I was 3. You know, he had like a thrombosis, heart condition. He was a mad addict, my dad, you know. It's still gets me sometimes, you know. I never really knew the man. You know, I think I've got one memory of him, which might not be an actual memory. You know, I think I maybe just remembering it, or remember hearing the tale about it. You know,
and in your imagination will paint that picture.
Exactly. You know, and I think that could well be the case because not many people remember when they were 3. But I've got this sort of thing in my head of a memory which wasn't, you know, really a particularly nice one. But from what everyone said about him, you know, I mean everybody, you know, he was some man. You know, he was some man, and he could handle himself.
So you reckon hereditary-wise, you've got some of him in you like that?
I've been told so, you know. I mean, if I had £1 when I was growing up for every time my mum said, "You are your dad through and through," you know, I probably wouldn't have to work anymore, you know.
I've seen photos of your mother as well. You do look like your mother.
Yeah.
Did you look like your father?
Bits, you know. I definitely got bits of him in me, you know, but more so my mum, you know. And
I've seen on a podcast before, which we will talk about when we go into the prison bit, but your grandfather you was very close with. Was that on your father's side?
No, that was my mum's dad.
Okay.
Yeah, my mum's dad. My granddad Ted was, you know, my hero, absolute hero. You know what I mean? He's the greatest man I ever met. You know, my entire life. You know, I miss him every day. I never forget all the things he ever told us and all the things he ever said. You know, and things just come to me sometimes. You know, flashbacks and that. And yeah, he was an amazing man. You know, Korean War veteran.
Wow.
He met me nana when he was like 19. His first ever girlfriend. You know, married her. Was with her for 50 years. You know, until she died. Just one of them real old school.
Yeah.
People. You know, I miss him. A great fella.
They don't make him like him no more.
They don't, mate. That whole generation. Not only the generation, of course, but the level of commitment, you know, and the values that those people had, you know, it's extinct now. I don't think them types of people with those types of values will ever come back, you know.
Do you think if we had a time machine and we went back to that time, we could hack it?
No, I don't. I really don't, you know. I would love a go at it.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to. I would love
challenge.
I would have loved to have been around before, you know, before this type of thing.
Yeah.
Even though it's a pleasure doing it now. You know, I think life would have been great, you know, when it was so simple, you know, the type of things of post-war even type life, you know, when everyone's banding together. Yeah, everyone's banding together, everyone's sort of helping each other, you know, there's no money about, you know, and you're growing your own veg and, you know, you're just doing things
off the grid
on a day-to-day basis, you know, about survival, you know.
Yeah, I often think of it quite a lot. It's because maybe I don't know about it as well, like, because I know that you you have your higher power, Danny Christie with a purple cross on social media.
Yes, mate.
You know, did we live live another life before, or are we just one spirit who goes to God? I don't know. It's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is fascinating, and sometimes I go to places. Durham, actually, funny enough, I was in Durham the other week, and when I got out of the taxi, I knew where I was going. I knew there was a bridge, and I knew there was water. I knew there was a castle up there or a church, because in my dream I'd seen it before. And how the fuck would I know about that place? So it's like, have we lived another life before? I don't know. It's all fascinating.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of stuff on that, and you can go as deep as you like with that, you know, past life regression and all that type of stuff, mate. It is fascinating, like you're saying. I believe, you know, there's an afterlife. I always have done, right through my entire using, way before I ever had a conscious contact with my higher power. You know, I always believed there's an afterlife. You know, I'm certain of it. You know, and I'm not really interested in anyone else's opinion. You know, that's what I believe, and you know, it won't waver. You know.
That's why you're so fearless, maybe, in that sense, you know? Because you just know that you're so adamant inside you that I'm going to go somewhere else anyway.
110%.
Yeah. What was the lowest point of your addiction? Or life, I should say.
Preston Jail, 2019, 3 days before Christmas. I'd not long been sentenced, 16-month sentence. And my sentence was a harassment without violence. So I immediately qualified for a Cat D prison, which is an open prison. I'd had a bit of an altercation in Durham before I went, and I hit some kid in the dinner queue. And then 2 days later, I got shipped out. And when I got to the open prison, then the nicking came through. So I shouldn't have been there. You know, they shouldn't have sent me, because this fight that I'd been in Durham, I had a charge come through. So they took me from Kirkham and put me into Preston Jail. So I'd done three prisons in 3 days by this time. So stress was through the roof anyway.
Oh, mate, I can imagine.
I was in active addiction. I was taking anything in prison. You know, it didn't matter what it was. I wasn't getting my drugs of choice. But I certainly wasn't willing to go behind my door.
Without something, whether it's a sleeper, whether it's whatever.
Didn't matter, mate. Just didn't matter. You know, the thought of going behind my door for 16 hours, you know, without anything was just, you know.
Yeah. I don't think people understand it, unless you're in that situation.
Yeah.
Those walls being taken away.
Mate, and it just all come to a point that shortly after that, I think I was only in there 19 nights. Sort of mid-December or something, I got put in there, and it was like 3 days before Christmas. I was stressed through the roof, you know what I mean? I was down there, and I remember feeling kind of isolated anyway in that prison, because, see, when you go to Durham, I'm not glorifying prison at all, but it's a stone's throw from us. All the lads, they're all Geordies, you know, they're all northeast, northwest lads. The crack is our crack, it's our banter, you know, all the words are the same. It's all chava, mush, gadji, you know, and went down to Preston, mate, and it's all like, in it, you know what I mean? And it was
Manchester.
And it was all G this and G that. Well, felt a million miles from home, you know what I mean? And it was kind of distant feeling anyway. And the chaplain come and got us, knew it was some bad news, you know, and took me down to the chapel, told me that my auntie had died, an auntie that I was really close to. You know, and I broke down in that chapel. I cried a river, you know, probably more so than I've ever cried before. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop crying. It was really nice, the chaplain. I was down there for about 2 hours. I couldn't stop crying, you know. There was literally a pool of tears on the carpet. And I eventually sorted myself out enough so that I could, you know, walk back down the wing and go to my pad. And I had one of them little plastic tile mirrors. And I remember looking at myself in that mirror for not just 1 or 2 hours, hours and hours. I must have stared at myself, my own reflection, for about 5 or 6 hours. Probably the only, and probably the first deep state of reflection that I'd ever been in.
I was about to say.
You know, taking a look at myself.
You said you've never looked at yourself before in a mirror.
I hadn't, mate. I'd just been floating around, you know. And all the chaos and carnage that I had caused, that I'd dismissed, was, of course, up until that day, everyone else's fault. You know, it was never me. That was part of my addiction, part of me, one of my defects. You know, nothing was my fault. It was everybody else. And it doesn't matter what had happened or if I was directly to blame. You give me 30 seconds, mate, and I'll give you a valid excuse why it was done, you know, and that it was somebody else's fault. But that day in particular, everything come crashing down for us. It was the deepest reflective state I've ever been in. And I remember thinking it was my fault. Everything was my fault from that day. And up until then, you know, I was 34 at that time. I'd never, ever taken accountability and responsibility for anything that I'd ever done, ever, until that day. And I knew I had to change, you know, and I wanted to change. And all, like I say, the trail of destruction, all the pain, the misery, the regret, the remorse, the suffering, the hurt, everyone I'd ever hurt, every mistake I'd ever made was like staring us right in the face, you know what I mean? It felt bad, felt really bad, guilty, you know, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame and sorrow. And I wanted to change. But you know, I've sharp realised that I was an addict and I couldn't. That was the only time and first time ever really I tried to stop taking drugs.
So when you was in prison, you've had this awakening. Obviously before that, you're trying to get anything before you go behind the door. You've had the awakening, or semi-awakening, you could say. It's the first time you're looking. Was you battling still in prison? Was you still going behind the door every day trying to get stuff up to that point, or was it...
Still using probably 5 times a day in prison.
Wow.
From that day.
So powerful it is, isn't it?
And every time I was using, 4 or 5 times a day was the last time.
It is,
you know?
Yeah.
And that went on. That went on till I got out, you know, 6 months later. That went on till I got out, and obviously when I did get out, I was right back onto my drugs of choice, you know what I mean? I come out of prison and I just hit the ground running.
Before you left prison, did you have a plan in your head as well, though, that when I get out, it's going to stop, or no?
No. All I wanted to do was stop using, you know, and I couldn't. And I told myself, it's because of prison, you know, that's the kind of the story I tried to sell myself, you know. Once I'm not locked up 16 hours a day, I'll be able to stop then, you know what I mean?
We have to justify it some way, don't we?
Of course we do. And even though I was every time I was using in prison was going to be my last, you know, eventually I come to the terms that, you know, I'll stop when I get out properly.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, all my drugs of choice were available then, you know.
It's mad that we think that way, even though out there it's magnified.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it, man. My feet hit the ground running. I was seeing Lass at the time. She come and picked me up, and she rung me when she was setting off, and I said, go here, just go there, pick me up a load of packets, get me this, get me that, bring a bottle of Jack Daniels, and that was it.
Have a party.
As soon as I got in the car, mate, I was only been in the car an hour, mate, and I was messed up, you know.
Your grandfather, he didn't pass at that sentence then. This is when you was out, is it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
We've got to rewind a little bit there.
Sorry, go on.
That's sound, mate. We've got to rewind a little bit there. When I first went to prison at 34, yeah, about March, I was on remand for a 12-week, and I was waiting to be sentenced. And excuse me, I ended up getting a compassionate bail with immediate release because my granddad was dying. My granddad thought I was away working. You know, we couldn't tell him I was in jail. You know, I was his blue-eyed boy. You know, so he thought I was away working. And I'm not sure what it's called or anything, but you get like that. You know when the doctor tells you you've only got so long to live. Well, that had happened. They said you know he's going to be dead in a week. So I got this compassionate bail with immediate release, and I only got it because, you know, I lived with my granddad a lot when I was young.
He's like your father.
He was very much so. You know, obviously my legal team had to present all this stuff to get there, you know, to get what they got for me, you know, this compassionate bail. And I got out after 12 weeks, and the ex-wife picked us up with the kids, which was a brilliant moment, you know, first time being in prison, being greeted by your kids at the door was really nice. Yeah. But then reality kicked in, you know, and I was going to see my granddad, who was, you know, on his deathbed really in his own house. And I went in. There was a nurse there. She said, I'll give you a moment. It was in his own house downstairs. He'd moved his bed downstairs, and that, of course, he couldn't handle the stairs no more. And I remember his eyes were stuck together with like sleep, you know. And he heard me. I said, Grandad, he was like that. He got this new little lease of life. He was like, oh, is that Danny? And I held his hand, you know, and he said some of the nicest things he'd ever said to us, you know. Me and my mum weren't speaking at the time, and my granddad said, you know, all I want is for you and your mum to get on. You know, he said, you're the last two people I've got in this world, you know, he says, I need you to get on. I'm getting a lump in my throat, mate. And I said, I promise that I'll make it up to Mum, and I promise, you know, we'll be all right. I said, I'm going to come back in the morning and give you your yogurt and that, because I knew he was having a yogurt in the morning. I was there an hour or so, you know, and I left and he was dead within the hour, you know, and it was a very sad day indeed. But I remember being forever grateful at that point that I actually got the chance to hold his hand in his dying hour. You know, it was, I think things could have been very different for me if that never happened. You know, I could have been higher power, could have been coincidence, could have been anything, but it worked out in my favour that I got to hold his hand in his dying hour. You know, the man that meant so much to us for so long. You know, it was a big moment in my life, that.
What do you know about Wales' #1 rated security provider, Boss Security? Boss Security Limited are a professional security service provider based in South Wales but servicing clients on a national scale. With over 10 years of experience in the security industry, they are true experts in all aspects of security, from CCTV monitoring, manned guards, mobile patrols, and alarm response. They provide the most advanced technology on the market, along with an expert team of staff delivering complete security solution to their clients throughout the UK. So why don't you stay secure? We've all heard of that saying, it's too good to be true. And I live by it until I come across Tidy Comps. Because there are good people out there who genuinely want to help make a difference in people's lives. And that's what TC are doing, via huge raffle prizes with all earnings going to a good cause. If you fancy a chance at winning, big or small, then send in your £1 entries to Tidy Comps. There are many opportunities to win, from daily and weekly Pay My Bills comps, signed shirts, and the big one that runs monthly, with prizes including 80 grand cash or a fully furnished house. What are you waiting for? Get a chance at winning big, and if you don't, then at least you're taking part in helping local charities throughout Wales, such as the Welsh Children's Cancer Charity, Jacob Abraham Foundation, Tackle Your Thoughts, and many more. Get over to Tidy Comps Facebook and other social media platforms to see what prizes are available today. He was probably hanging on for you.
Yeah, I've heard that.
He was hanging on
I've
to
heard that
see
before.
you and was at peace when he said those words.
Yeah, I've heard that before, mate, and it's a nice thought. It's a really nice thought.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
So that was that. I was out and about for a 10, 11 week running about on a tag, you know, and then I got the 16-month sentence, you know, I just referred to.
Well, we're not going to mention no names for legal reasons, and probably morally as well. But I think people know who we're talking about. But that was because of him you was in prison then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
and
mate.
From this moment here, where do you bridge the gap from you just blowing up on YouTube? Where did you know it was enough with the drugs? When did you get on that track?
Probably about best part of 20 months or something after I come out of prison. You know, I never went a day without using. In them 20 months that I come out, I never went a day without using in prison. Well, I tell a lie, I maybe went 2 or 3 days stretched across my remand and my sentence, purely because there was nothing on the wing. You know, it wasn't through choice. And
I love them ones.
Yeah.
I've been clean for 4 months because it's fucking dry on the wing.
Yeah, but you know, it got on top of us. You know, it got on top of us. This wanting to stop but couldn't stop. You know, ending up crying, and you know, feeling sorry for yourself to the point of, you know, you're just a mess. Just a shadow of a man, you know what I mean? And you got real deep feelings of guilt in that then, because, you know, it's all consequences now, you know what I mean? You're not this young carefree person anymore. You know, you're supposed to have your shit together. You know what I mean? And you're in the mire, and that's very much what it was. And day before New Year's Eve, not last year, the year before, you know, I heard about the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, recovery. Seen a friend that I've used with many times. I say a friend, he was my ex-brother-in-law. And I remember him coming in my house, and he's like, oh, he had this mad energy that I'd never seen before. He looked different, he sounded different. He was very positive and polite, you know, which was strange. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, I could do with some of that. He's like, you're coming. He's like, you're coming, you need this, you know what I mean, you're coming. And he took us down to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, and you know, the rest is history, mate. I found recovery, you know, probably the single most best thing I've ever done with my life, by far, in fact.
I speak to some people who's been through it the same way as you, and they say it's like people have said they've left the building like they're levitating. And these are people who, you know, it's not like someone who's just far-fetched, who over-exaggerates. These are boys who would say, fuck off, 12 steps. And they're genuinely like, Cullen, I felt like I was floating out of the room. Wow. It must be powerful.
Yeah, it's the best thing I've ever done with my life by far, mate. By far. You know, it's... I knew immediately I was in the right place. I knew immediately, and I knew because, you know, when I entered the rooms, there was a whole consortium of people that I'd seen around for years and grew up with and wondered where they'd been.
Yeah.
Wondered where they'd been.
Some of them are dead.
Yeah.
You know, some of them have been said they're dead.
That's it. You know, but these lads they were like me. Some of them were worse than me. And they were all sat there, and like you just said, some of the people that you know of, I was of that mindset before I went there. You know, I'd have thought they were just divvies.
Yeah.
That would have been my opinion. Just a load of cult divvies.
Yeah.
You know, hippies, if you like, whatever. Probably had a few choice words for them.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been for me anyway, that's for sure. But, you know, eventually in the back end of me using, you know, I've said this before, the fear of staying the same was much greater than the fear of change. You know what I mean? I needed to change. And I'd have done anything to attempt that change, you know, in a proper format and a proper manner. And yeah, I knew I was in the right place from the start. I never got it right the first few times. You know, I had multiple relapses in my first 3 months. But I knew what it was all about, and I knew what was on offer. You know, it was a bridge to normal living, you know, and it's not easy, but, you know, it works if you work it, as they say.
Yeah.
You know, it won't happen all by itself. You know, you've got to put the work in, and it's hard, mate.
Yeah, and again, like, I want to stress to people as well that, you know, people have blips, you know. People have blips as well. Like, people should never beat themselves up, I don't think. That's from my perspective. I've heard other ways as well, and I know 12 steps and stuff they have their own set, like, kind of rules to it. But it is what works with you. But I'm in the eyes of, if you've achieved so much in your life, I think with 12 steps they say if you relapse, you're back to square one.
Yeah, you lose your clean time.
Yeah. But to me, I agree. You do lose your clean time, but everything you've just achieved in that gap of being clean, you've learned about, you've experienced, you've got those tools to use the next time round.
Bingo, mate. That's very much what it was, you know. Even after them relapses, I knew. It's a funny thing, your addiction, you know. Even when it's kept at bay, I had it at bay longer than it had ever been at bay. In my first time, I'd done 59 days. My first time round, and it's the longest I'd ever went without using since I was about 11.
Wow.
You know, and me being 36 at the time was, you know, quite an achievement. Yeah. But then, you know, you relapse. And for me, that fuck it comes into it. You know, I'll get back to the rooms when I'm finished this one.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to make this a big one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what you do.
Go with a bang.
That's what you do. You know, and it's dangerous, man. Relapse kills people. The graveyard's full of people who were just going on one last session.
On one last session, yeah.
You know, and that's the sad truth.
Sometimes it's too far to come back from for some people, isn't it?
Of course.
I've done this long, and I saw a video of Paul Venice when he went on YouTube, and my heart went out to him, because I could just, you know, I can't, you know, that's one thing I would never do, is say, oh, I've been there. But just, I sympathised and empathised in a way of just like, mate,
Of course.
everything's okay, like, you know.
Of course.
Have you always been an emotional person? Because I think you are very emotional.
Of course I am, mate. Of course I am, mate. I cried just last night. You know, just last night I had a cry.
But was you like this always? Have you always been like this?
Yeah.
Yeah?
But, you know, I've broke down in tears, you know, many, many times. Quite regular. But now, you know, I haven't cried being upset for a while. You know, I was watching a video that my second eldest daughter had made for me. And it was just like a little thing that they put together on TikTok. Mental, these kids. And it was just like a series of clips. You know, my dad, who is my dad, why do I love him? And yeah, it got me, mate. Got me there. You know what I mean? And it's a nice feeling. It's they say when you get into recovery, you know, your feelings come back. For so long, mate, with me, it was just anger. If I was supposed to feel some way of the emotional spectrum, you know, I could always turn it into anger. Doesn't matter what it was. That was my first go-to emotion. That's where I got my biggest release, you know, by being angry. You know, and I did feel good after a good kick-off, you know, whether it was a physical altercation or just shouting and screaming and being quite threatening and obnoxious. Made me feel good. You know, them days are gone, mate. Them days are gone. I couldn't think of anything worse. Now, you know, now I get real true feelings of happiness and joy, mate, you know, just to see something like that, what my second eldest daughter had, you know, made for me and sent it to us. And yeah, it got me there, got me right there. And brilliant, mate. I can do it on one of them, mate, you know what I mean? I can cry at a movie or something like that, mate, you know, I can identify with a lot of stuff like that.
The videos she done, were they qualities of you that you didn't think you have?
Which videos on my channel?
The TikTok she done.
Oh,
like,
man.
When she's saying, my dad's this, my dad's that, were these things that you probably never thought of as well, like? Or look at like something was special? Because kids see stuff in us that we don't see. Yeah,
well, you know, you think, you know, it was, I think without thinking about it, you know, to be asked about it, you take them things for granted. You know your kids love you and you love your kids. But when you get it there in like a video format, something that they've created all by themselves, you know, and knocked something up, which took I don't know how long. Yeah, it took my breath away, mate. Absolutely took my breath away. I rung her up immediately, told her how much I loved her and how good it was. And it was only at the weekend gone. I had the 3 youngest. And I took them uptown for an Italian through the day. And I gave them all a purple each, you know, and they went in Primark, getting bits of jammies and bits of this and that. And it was on the way home. I did spend a few quid on them, of course. But it was on the way home, they said, you know, all 3 of them sort of banded together and they were like, you know, you're the coolest dad ever, you know, we love you so much. And yeah, it's mint, man. That's the stuff I live for now. You know, that's where the real substance is for me, you know, in that type of stuff, you know. That's the stuff I live for, man, to feel stuff like that. You know, it outweighs anything, you know, anything of a material value for sure. And the majority of things that get our focus and our time and attention in life, which are ultimately just pointless, mate, and a lot of it's bullshit and a lot of it's meaningless, you know. But for stuff like that, you know, it's one of them moments, you know, you could leave the planet right there and then, you know, and be happy with, you know, what you've got.
Quite deep,
yeah,
powerful.
Yeah, man.
You've come out of nowhere on the YouTube and the famous fight, which was just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I remember, you know, when they say like, when the Twin Towers happened, we knew where we was. When the Queen died, I knew where I was. When Danny Christie fought in the ring, it was just fucking unbelievable. But before we go into this side of things,
yes, mate.
Did you ever think that you would be where you are now 4 or 5 years ago?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, mate. And irrespective of everything, you know, let's say some kind of recognition or all this stuff, sobriety, recovery, all this stuff. Ultimately, me, you know, ultimately me as a person. You know, I never thought I'd have made the changes that were possible.
Yeah.
You know, in order to achieve everything that I have. You know what I mean? I'm not skint. I have, you know, an abundance of lovely shiny objects, material things.
Things you would never buy before.
Absolutely. But ultimately, you know, the deep and meaningful relationships that I've got in my life, you know, with my kids, with my girlfriend, with my mum, you know, with all the stuff that counts, that stuff now has got more value than it's ever had. And it's real. You know what I mean? I can think about it and just shed a tear. You know how amazing it is.
I want to give you a hug, but I need to shake your hand.
Thank you, bro.
Because that's just fucking.
Thank you,
honestly,
my man.
mate, it's fucking amazing, mate.
Thank you, brother.
And sometimes, like, I have to pinch myself with where I am, and it's only when I look at someone else who's, because, you know, you said your last sentence was 2019. Like, that's 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I was in prison 2019.
Yeah.
We're only seeing the fruits of our normal life together.
Yeah.
We should get married. No, you know what I'm saying, though? It's fucked up. And sometimes people are like, have you seen how far you've come? And I'm like, I've got to see it in you to see where I am.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking powerful, mate, honestly.
Yeah. Well, listen, mate, you know, right back at you. I only watched your little episode on Lad Bible the other day, and there was a lot of stuff there I wasn't aware of. I knew you'd had your struggles and problems, but to hear it from yourself and to get a little insight, you know, into what it was, mate, fair play to you, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Total and utter respect, mate. And it just added to the respect that I've already got for you, mate. You know, I wouldn't have,
thank you, honestly.
I wouldn't have come all this way to do this, you know, if I didn't, you know, have the respect I've got for you, mate.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Fair play to you, mate.
I have got you a ticket receipt to pay you back. No, I would come to Carlisle for you, mate, honestly. But we thought we got to get him in the new studio.
Yeah, and it's a class setup, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is nice, isn't it?
What a setup, mate. It's class.
Yeah. Okay, enough of the lovey-dovey.
Yes.
Let's get into the...
Back to business,
Let's
mate.
get into the nitty-gritty, right?
Yeah.
So, it was 2020, 21. Was it 21 or 22?
It was 21. It was 21.
And of course, people have a lot of... You know, people have got a lot of insight into it. So if you want to look at that, you can look at that on YouTube, because there's thousands of videos out there. But just describe quickly, like, going into that fight, how was you, preparation style and stuff? Was there any?
No, there was very little physical preparation for that day. I was in active addiction, you know, and I remember realising how much I was addicted, you know. I thought when I got that phone call to do that fight in 6 days, you know, I was speaking to some travelling lads about it. They'd sort of initiated the contact, said it was happening. And no, I'll be honest, I kind of kidded on the phone that, like, oh, you know, like as if I was somehow backed into a corner, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. You know, I'll see you in 6 days. I put the phone down, you know, I could have done a backflip. You know what I mean? I thought eventually I'm going to get my chance to get my hands on this person that's, in my opinion, you know, caused us a lot of issues in my own head, you know, my own life. You know, that's just how I seen it. And I thought, right, let's go for a run. No, mate, I got just over a mile, mate, and I nearly died. You know what I mean? I thought, right, let's not do any running. Let's not do any running. And I got a rough, tough pal of mine, Mickey Stewart. Big shout out, Mickey Stewart.
Shout out to Mickey.
I love the lad. He's probably the biggest puncher I've ever shared a ring with. You know, he hits very, very hard. And I thought I'll have a couple of rounds sparring with him. And
don't train with Mickey Stewart.
Do not spar.
I thought you was going to say
Hammers.
the same with the running thing then. Don't do that.
No, mate, I held my own-ish.
Yeah.
I held my own-ish. But, you know, Mickey got the better of us. But I remember him catching us with some good, clean punches, and I thought, you know, my chin's fine, because he is still, to this day, the biggest puncher I've ever shared a ring with, and he doesn't come to play, you know. So I remember thinking, oh, you know, I could take a punch better than I thought I perhaps could. And it was about 3 days in, I hadn't had any Valium. This was like, and I thought, you know, I better have these 6 days off, you know, because I need to be in kind of the best shape I can be.
Top and
it got to like the Wednesday, and I was getting all these constricting pains across my chest, and I'm laughing, it's not a funny matter, but it just...
withdrawing from the Valium.
Mate, looking back, I can I remember the state I was in, you know. Wow. I had these constricting pains, these mad headaches, you know, withdrawn, yeah. And I took 2. I remember I was like, that's better, you know. And that's when it hit us really, you know, how much trouble I was actually in.
Physically dependent.
Yeah, how much trouble I, you know, the trouble I was actually in was just magnified. I'd tried to stop before and couldn't, but I thought, you know, I actually have to stop now with this going on. Still couldn't. And the dinner time before, I just took one on the Thursday. I thought I'd better just check one. I don't want another episode like that on fight day. You know, I thought I just took one the dinner time. So it was about just over 24 hours before I popped another one. But yeah, I didn't really have much fear or anxiety, to be honest, until I was, you know, walking into that gym. Obviously, I was numb, mate. I was numb with active addiction. But yeah, mate, listen, it was what it was. You know, it was what it was. I was, you know, more than happy to go down there and physically engage.
Yeah, it's everything about it. It was going down there on your own. And
yeah,
at the time, obviously, Dougie and them were in the public eye close with Decca. Yeah. You know, so it's like you're going into their territory, so to speak, you know?
Yeah. I had Big Paul Venice with us, mate. I felt safe.
He was fine with Big Paul, yeah.
You know, I love Big Paul. And, you know, he's my friend and brother, man. We get on brilliant. We speak regular. And, you know, he made me a promise on the way in. He was like, look, he went in first, actually. Excuse me. He went in first and said, there's about 9 of them in there. And he said, and it's a 12-foot ring. You know, we were told it was a big ring. 20-foot ring, we heard. 12-foot ring, which changes things when you're fighting a big man.
Fucking right.
He come out and said it's a 12-foot ring, and there's about 8 or 9 of them in there. Said, you still want to go in? I was like, yeah. And I finished my hand wraps and that by this time. I was ready to go. And he put his hand out and said, listen, no matter what happens in here, if it goes off in here, I said, I'll die with you in here. He said, I haven't brought you this far, you know what I mean, to see you get a bad shake. You know, he said, whatever goes up, mate, I'm with you. And that was all I needed to hear, mate. I went in there, you know, with the intentions of doing some serious damage, mate, and I tried my best, you know.
Fucking hell. That's amazing. Innit?
Yeah, it was what it was, you know. It definitely blew up. Got us plenty of recognition. You know, and we hear this thing all the time. Well, you know, I get it a lot. Because I read a lot of my comments, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, I can't read them all. So if there's anybody that I don't get back to, you know, I do apologise. It's simply, I get that many comments. It can rapidly become a full-time job reading them all and replying to them all. But I've read plenty of times that, you know, I've built a channel. I've built a channel off the back of that. You know, if that's how some people see it, then I can see why. It's
not a crime, though.
No, I can see why.
It's made you a better person. It's give you focus. Do you know what I mean?
I can see why people would think that, you know, and that's absolutely, you know, it's a fair statement. But
yeah, you hear the oh, if it weren't for Decca, it wouldn't be Danny. Well, if that's the case,
if that's the case, and you think that, you know, then thank you, and you know, it could well be the case. You know, at the end of the day, nobody gave me a prayer that day. You know, I was supposed to be getting minced. And, you know, I knew different. I went down and done, you know, the least I was going to do, you know, and I was ultimately pleased with myself, you know, giving away with the weight deficit and the resume that was brought in from the opponent and this and that and all the other stuff that didn't really mean anything at the time and still doesn't now. But, you know, in the public's opinion, I was writ off. I didn't have a chance, you know, and I remember, you know, inflicting probably one of the biggest scars I've ever seen in combat sports. I mean, the thing was about 7 inches long.
I remember it's part of his face now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That scar, it's there forever for him to look at. But I remember the video beforehand. I think he was on the bags, and everyone's like, "Look, he's not fit." I think it was like a ploy from you. I think it was like, do you know what I mean? Just look shit on the bags.
Yeah, I was just I was shit at that time. You know, I wasn't in any kind of physical shape, you know, to be doing what I'd done. But the emotion was enough to carry us through.
Yeah.
You know, the emotion was enough. You know, it wasn't the average day at the office. You know what I mean? It was a deeply personal affair.
Beyond
you know,
sports.
And that's, you know, that's where I got it from, you know.
Yeah, and do you know what? I will move on from that swiftly because, you know, it was the thing that made you, but we don't want to, you know, because obviously there's things that can't be spoken about. But
yeah,
it's taken you to another level, and it's changed your life of it. You know, ultimately, you're now in the BKFC, mate.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
like,
mate.
what's so funny? It's sick, isn't it, mate? I didn't realise how big BKFC was, bro.
Yeah, it's
until my mate was like, you know, that's like the daddy.
Yeah, it's global, mate. Yeah, it's big.
Gas for you, mate, honestly.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've seen your fights as well, mate. You fucking done them both in fashion, really. I know you weren't as happy with the one as the other, but...
Yeah, listen, you know, it was what it was. They are what they are. You know, people are free to speculate and have their own opinions. I'm pleased with what I'm doing and, you know, how things are going.
Even if you got beat, mate, fucking you should be pleased with what you do.
Yeah.
I know you're a fighting man from Carlisle who don't want to get beat, but...
Yeah. Listen, mate, I've got no problem at all losing to the better man. You know, you'll see that if that day ever comes. I'll salute that man, you know what I mean? I'll give 110% in there. So if anyone can beat me when I'm doing that, you know, what's the problem? If I don't give 110%, you know, then it might be a problem. That day's never going to come. You know, if I lose, mate, it'll be to the better man.
Yeah.
You know, and I have no qualms in losing to the better man. This is a fight game, you know what I mean? You've got to remember I'm nearly 40 years old. You know, I'm not a spring chicken no more. Yeah. But I've got enough left in the tank, mate, to do what I want to do, mate. You'll see.
Yeah, mate, you only look at some boxers, mate. They're in their 50s. You know, look at George Foreman. I know, you know, times have changed, but he was fucking 50, mate. World champion.
Yeah.
You know, you've got plenty left in the tank.
Yeah.
If you want it.
Oh, I want it.
What? So you've got, was it a 3-fight contract to start with?
Yeah, this next fight's, you know, the end of my contract. Likely to be getting renewed. There's a big fight coming off in April. I can't disclose any of it, unfortunately, because the contracts haven't landed. You know, and it's a breach of, you know, me contract. So, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. It's a big one. It's, you know, the fight. Not say the fight I've been asking for. I was asking for the best available opponents, you know, and the promotion have delivered.
Fair play.
You know, it's going to be a big fight.
I think they know you've got like a following behind you and that as well now, which is obviously helpful. Yeah. The 3-fight contract, if this next one ain't a title one though, but surely they can't terminate. Obviously, they've got to give you some sort of title shot if you keep winning.
Mate, I think we'll just have to stay tuned. You know?
Yeah. No. That's fair enough.
It's going to be big, mate. You know,
yeah.
This fight's going to be big, and I treat every fight like it's my last fight at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a high mileage body. I've got a lot of injuries, but you know I can take a punch, and I know I've got heart. You know, and those things can't be learned in the gym. You know what I mean? So, very pleased with who I am today. You know, and very grateful that I've got some athletic ability left for my chosen career. You know, at almost 40 years
it's
old.
It's not like you've just been like a goody two-shoe and just decided to fight at 40. You've fucking been doing a lot of naughty things.
Yeah, of course, mate. And I've been treating my body like it's my enemy.
Yeah.
You know, for the last 20 odd years. You know, and now I really respect this vessel that I've got, and I'm grateful, you know, every day for opening my eyes. But, you know, very grateful that I've got athletic ability, mate, at my age, you know. But the window's closing, mate. It's not closed just yet, but it's closing, you know.
More recent, another time you've hit the media again. Obviously, you've just gone and sparred with Tommy Fury. How did that come about?
I got a asked a little while ago when I went and met John. I've met Big John Fury a few times. You know, big shout out, Big John Fury. Big John's exactly what you see. You know, that's just Big John. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the way he is. He's very genuine. He's a lovely chap. You know, he can talk fighting till the cows come home. You know, he loves talking boxing and fighting. And we've got a mutual friend. I'll leave his name out of it. We've got a mutual friend, me and John. And it come about, you know, that I got the invite through our mutual friend. And I went down. It was a great experience, you know. Tommy is much, much better than we all think. You know, you've got to remember when these pros, these prospects, you know, there's a lot of speculation made about his opponents and the records that they've had. Well, you know, let me tell you something, you know, 99% of prospects are fed people like that when they're coming up. That's just how it is, you know, and what they do often is they come down to their opponent's level. You know, now, I'm also aware that you get these people. You get certain people who they really shine in the gym. You know, they're much, much better in the gym. And sometimes they get under the lights and they can't quite perform. Now, I'm not for 1 minute saying that that's the case with Tommy Fury, but from what I seen that day and from what I felt, you know, I was very impressed, you know, and he's probably a level of talent that we haven't seen him, you know, on the telly, from him, you know, on the telly just yet. He's a very good fighter, mate, and I'll be putting a nice bet on him, you know, to beat Jake Paul.
How much?
I wasn't going to say, mate, you know, but I'll put the slip up. It's going to be a tasty few £100, put it that way. You know, I haven't quite got my mind set on it, how much, but it'll be a few notes.
So, this YouTube boxing, I know Tommy isn't from YouTube. He's professional. Done Love Island. I thought with the Jake Paul kind of thing, I always thought it was fixed. I did. And I know for fighters, people get quite anal about it because you're in the ring yourself now in a professional promotion. Totally legit then, you think this is the real deal?
Well, listen, you know, it's not for me to say because I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of money behind Jake Paul. You know, a lot of money behind him. And, you know, as we know, money talks.
Money talks.
Who knows? You know, who knows? Sometimes a little bit concerning, I suppose, considering the amount of money that's behind him, you know, and when you start talking about a level playing field.
Yeah.
It's concerning.
You said that about the training facilities and, you know, everything really, isn't it?
But, you know, it is what it is. I'm sticking to what I think, you know. I mean, who knows? In my opinion, for whatever that's worth, you know, again, it's my opinion, you know. You're entitled to yours. Well, this is mine. You know, Tommy beats him. Tommy beats him. Tommy keeps him long. Tommy boxes him. Tommy busts him up over the first few rounds with that excellent jab that he's got, doubling, tripling it up, plenty of feints. I think he frustrates him. I think he has him overreaching and leaving his feet behind. You know, he possibly stops him. You know, from what I've seen, he beats him comfortably, you know. Who knows?
Anything you like, Waz?
Some people think that he's been pushed into it a little bit, Tommy Fury, like by Jake Paul or by the Furies. But does he feel like, you know, he wants to be there?
Yeah. Certainly seems that way. Yeah. You know, but I don't know. You know, I'm not inside Tommy's head, you know. But from what I've seen, yeah. But also, mate, you got to remember, like, the enormity of the event and the sums that we're talking about financially here. Do you know what I mean? It's not your average couple of pros going at it at York Hall. Do you know what I mean? It's in Saudi Arabia.
Ooh, don't say York Hall, mate. Liam Williams was in here last time, weren't he? He was pissed with it, weren't he? But York Hall's a great place.
Yeah, it's been the venue for a lot of great fights over the years. But, you know, like I say, money talks, mate. Who knows? So
if you went in for a prediction now, Tommy, Jake?
Yeah, mate, I made a prediction on my channel last night. I think Tommy sticks to his boxing. Tommy can do it comfortably. But like I said, it's becoming a very personal affair. You know, sometimes pride can get the better of you and can get a bit overzealous. And if he searches for the knockout and looks for the knockout, if it turns into a firefight, you know, it's anybody's game.
Yeah.
And Jake Paul can punch. So, you know, I'm sure he's got a brilliant team behind him. I'm sure he'll get it just right. I'll be feeding him that jab for the first few rounds, just frustrating the life out of him. And just let him do all the work. Just nudge back, circle round. Just let him do all the work and just jab the face off him. You know, time will tell.
Yeah. I got to mention it before we go as well, because obviously we are on YouTube. You did make a video after the reaction to the Dougie and Dean episode, and that fiasco happened. You're on a good track right now. You're very focused. You're in a positive mindset. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever fight Dean and Jordan?
No. Highly unlikely.
Realistically.
I was very serious at the back end of last year. You know, again, we spoke about it before. You know, in all honesty, you know, when my head's not really right, not really where it should be, I shouldn't be looking at my phone. I shouldn't be reading comments and looking at other people's content because, you know, I'd be surprised in the things that I can take personally.
Yeah.
When my head's fine, I can read and see anything. It doesn't bother me. But that was one of them days where it was more me, you know, than Dean. Dean's Dean. You know, I'm not quite certain he's aware of who he is himself yet. You know, we seem to get this multitude of characters that come from Dean. But, you know, I wish him all the best.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I wish him all the best. You know, there was a brief period where I certainly wanted to put my hands on him. But that's past. And I really don't think I'll fight him, no, simply because of me. You know, I don't have the passion inside me to go driving to Manchester and looking for it or searching for it or arranging it. The passion's just not there. I wish Dean all the very best in whatever he's doing, you know. That little moment which came from me, which was an offer for me to go down and put hands on him, you know, it quickly vanished, you know. It was more me than him, you know. It's surprising the things I can take personally when my head's not right, you know.
No, I totally agree, mate.
Yeah.
The Darren G thing, is he still dismissed?
Yeah, I've got, you know, very little interest or patience for that matter, you know, towards Darren G. He is what he is, mate. You know, there's no point me insulting him or saying anything. Darren's going to do what Darren's going to do anyway, you know. I don't think it would matter who the person was. Darren's not going to listen. Yeah. So, you know, he can do him and I'll do me, you know.
And finally, the big man, the one that this all came from, do you think you'll fight him again?
Never say never, you know. It'd probably be quite difficult to motivate myself now because, you know, I've put that much distance between the situation and, you know, myself. It's...
you going back to that will be giving him the favour, if anything.
Yeah, never say never. I mean, the thing is, you know, I don't have any enemies these days, you know, and that's a nice place to be, you know, to gather the necessary motivation. You know, I perhaps would need to dig up some old stuff, you know, which I'm probably not keen on doing, you know. But like I say never. Who knows? We could pass each other in a Tesco's and could rip the face off each other, you know. I just never know. Could be on a hair trigger if we ever came in each other's presence, you know. It could be in an Asda or whatever, and it maybe just come over the speaker, you know. Can somebody please clean up aisle 5, you know? But you never know. As it stands, no interest, no ill feelings towards the man. You know, I'm just that focused on myself and my family and my journey, my direction, my goals.
Yeah.
You know, and an abundance of peace and joy, which I seem to have gathered along the way.
You sound like you're in a great place.
Thank you, mate.
Great state of mind. You're looking amazing.
Things are good. Thank you.
It's been really quite emotional, mate, and I'm just so grateful that you come down and we had this conversation, mate. Thank you again. There's one thing we do with all our guests, especially ones who've been through that adversity.
Yeah.
And that's if you could look down the camera and see us out to the people in typical Danny Christie fashion with something positive.
Yeah, he put me right on the spot there, mate. Wish I knew that was coming. But yeah, listen, you know, we've all got different directions. Like I say, I floated about for years. I can only relate to my story because, you know, I know that one better than anybody else's, you know, and I found something that worked for me, you know, and I stuck at it. Everyone's got potential. Everybody's good at something, you know. Life's too short. At the end of the day, if there's loved ones that you've fallen out with or there's things you need to do, you know, I've said it before, why don't you do them right now? You know what I mean? You never know the moment when you're not going to be around no more. So, you know, make the most of today. Live for today, you know. Be the best person that you can be. It's not always easy, but the way I do it is I think, you know, I might not wake up in the morning. So if there's anything of importance that I need to do today, do it. And that's it, you know, for what it's worth. Thank you.
Danny, honestly, it's been a massive pleasure, mate.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. Been
Thank
a pleasure
you so
also.
much.
No problem, mate. Loved it.
Me too.
Class.
Guys, please go and follow Danny Christie's journey. If you're not already, I'm pretty sure a lot of you on YouTube are, but if you're not, please go and follow his journey. You're on Instagram. Is it Divies?
Yeah, I've changed it, mate. I kind of ran its course, that Divies. It's just Danny TB Christie.
Danny Christie on Instagram. His YouTube channel.
The Real Danny Christie. Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, we'll put the links in the description. But yeah, thank you so much, Dan, again. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Real deep, emotional, and I hope we all learned a lesson from this one as well. That it's never too late. As cliche as it sounds, it's never too late to change. Stay central.
The Central Club.